And welcome to the Wednesday night episode of See You at USC. I'm your host, Alexia Narcisse, and tonight I'm here with the District Attorney of Los Angeles County, Jackie Lacey. Stay tuned. Good evening and welcome back to See You. I'm here with Jackie Lacey, the District Attorney of Los Angeles County, and tonight we're going to be asking her a lot of questions about her history, what she's doing now as the District Attorney, and what she's looking forward to doing moving forward. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking.
Of course. Now, we are excited to have you, especially because you are part of the Trojan family. From what I know, you've done law school here at USC. Am I correct?
That's correct. I was fortunate enough to get accepted here back in 1979, and I graduated in 1982 with my law degree. And I'm a very proud Trojan, very proud of the education I got here and the experiences that I had as a Trojan. And I'm still connected, so it's even better.
Without a doubt. And of course, things have changed a bit now versus how they were then. So what was your experience like being in the law school and especially growing up nearby?
Well, it was interesting. Growing up as a kid, I grew up in the Crenshaw district, which is, maybe 4 or 5 miles away. And SC is a main thoroughfare for us heading to the 110 freeway. And so we'd pass by all the time. My parents didn't get a college education, so I never imagined that I would be going to school here, let alone law school. So to actually walk on campus for the first time and be part of that class, the class that graduated in 1982, was very surreal, very unbelievable. Not something that I ever imagined I'd be able to do.
Now, did you see yourself going from USC to become a district attorney? Was that a goal of yours?
No.
What was your mindset when you were here?
Well, in some respects, I feel like the path that I set out on was not the actual journey. So before I went to law school, I wanted to be an elementary school teacher, and then discovered, that's a really tough job. You need to be cut out for that. And I saw, bottom line is, I saw a lawyer speak one night and thought, I could do what that woman does. And I had applied to several different schools, but got into USC and ended up coming here. So it was very surreal. And when I got here, it was nerve-wracking because law school is a very different animal than undergraduate school. I mean, from the get-go that you have to study a lot, you have to read a lot, you have to analyze, you've got to keep up, you've got to constantly think about what you're doing, what you're writing. And so it was, probably the hardest educational challenge I've ever had in my life, but very exciting. So when I got to be DA, when I left law school, I thought I was going to do entertainment law, and ended up in a civil firm.
Okay.
I was bored.
Yes.
And ended up going, a friend asked me to apply for an open job as a prosecutor, and I did, and I fell in love.
Wow, I've heard so many stories about people having a career trajectory that's
Right.
in one direction and then kind of curtailing.
Oh, yeah.
Do you have any dream that's outside of the field of law that's kind of like your secret wish, that's something you wish you could have done?
Yeah. I mean, I've always enjoyed writing, and so one day I'm hoping to write a book. And have it published, and because I think there are a lot of interesting stories that I have to tell, and I think I could tell it from a personal perspective that might be interesting.
Do you have your dream title of that book? What would that book be titled?
Oh, I haven't thought about it. I would be related, obviously, to the district attorney's office and the criminal justice system, but more from a personal level in terms of meeting every challenge, proving myself, the successes,
Yes.
the things that are not so successful, and dealing with the very different personalities that I have to deal with.
Now, you touched on proving yourself.
Yeah.
What was that like working your way up within the office?
I've been in the office 30 years. It will be 30 years this past March. And one of the ways you prove yourself is getting promoted up the ranks. That's like a public acknowledgement in front of your peers that you've achieved and that you're worthy, even though you may not be worthy, because sometimes promotions are not made based on that. But I felt like with each of my promotions, I had done a body of work and contributed to cases, and my name would be on those cases forever. And so I was very proud of those accomplishments. And being DA, being the first woman, the first African American, people have to remember that in the field I work in terms of the leadership, there are very few women, there are very few African Americans. And you do feel like people are judging you and holding you to a certain standard. Are you smart enough? Are you motivated enough? How will you handle this adversity? And so each decision I make either proves or disproves that I'm worthy to have the position that I hold. So now it's been 4 years, and I'm comfortable. You know what I mean? I don't really feel like I have to spend a lot of time proving myself. I can just get the job done, and I can laugh more at myself.
Yeah. Now you touched on something very important. For those of you who don't know, she is the first Black and female district attorney in Los Angeles. What was it like for you when you sat down at that desk, your first day, and you said, I've made it?
Well, it's hard to remember. I mean, I have funny stories about, one of the things I like to tell people is the district attorney gets their own private bathroom. And when I walked in, there was no toilet seat. So I had to sign an order to get a toilet seat. No, I had to sign an order to get a toilet seat.
You went for the right route.
Right. Yeah, sign an order to get a toilet seat, because God forbid an earring would drop into that toilet while I was in there combing. I'd never get it back. But just little things, sort of figuring out how to do things my own way. I very much embrace my own gender and my race and ethnicity, and realized that there would be decisions that I would make that would come from a different experience than any prior DA. I love looking at all of the photos of all of the men that have come before me, and then looking at my photo, because it's so different, and it does represent a change, and a positive change.
An incredible change.
An incredible change, because I hope that people of color, particularly people who are young, look at me and say, if she can do it, I can do it. If she can accomplish this, I'm going to go ahead and accomplish what I was meant to do. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, so it's great. It's very awe-inspiring.
Yes, and I know that you do have 2 kids. Am I correct?
Yeah, April and Kareem.
Oh, that's incredible. And I hope they're watching tonight. What is that
so.
like for you, raising these 2 young kids, and they get to say, my mom's the DA? I know that there's definitely some pros and cons to that.
Yeah, when my children were young, while I had a career, I very much focused in on them, because I felt that if I neglected them and became successful, then God forbid, something happened in their lives where they went astray because I wasn't there, then as far as I'm concerned, I would consider myself a failure. And so for many, many years, it was all about them. And when I say it was all about them, I brought work home. I made sure that I was there for dinner. I was at every soccer game, every basketball game, anything that they were involved in, it was all about them. And when they went away to college, and really I realized that they were going to be okay, they were going to make it. Then I started turning inward and looking at myself and saying, have I really accomplished everything that I was meant to do? And started focusing on evaluating my own career, and decided that I couldn't push them or inspire them to go as far as I thought they should go if I hadn't done the same for myself. So now I believe they're proud of me, which makes me feel very, very good inside. I want them to be proud of me. And they seem to have embraced the whole DA-hood life much more than I have. There's a lot of things, a lot of privileges that come with having being elected official, and they seem to have embraced it, and they ask a lot of questions, and they enjoy talking to me about the latest criminal justice issues on television. So I think they're very happy.
So being in this position, of course, you handle a family, your work life, and so many cases. Do you have any cases that really stand out to you as impactful, or where you felt like you were really able to make a change that was important to you?
You know, I don't handle cases now because people don't realize the DA's office, the LA County District Attorney's office, is the largest office probably in the United States. It is the largest office in the United States. I have 1,000 prosecutors. I have 300 law enforcement officers and 800 support staff people.
That's a big team.
So I don't go to court, and if I'm in court, there's a problem, right? Because there are so many other folks that go to court. What I do is I lead. I inspire, I make policy, I determine our goals, I respond to any crisis, I'm accountable to the public, and I make sure that they understand what justice is. And when I am doing that, I feel like I'm 2 feet above the ground, and I never thought, you know, in my lifetime that I would be a leader of an office this size. And in terms of balance, I think it's a joke. And I wish women who made it look easy, or people who make balance look easy, would stop it, because the truth of the matter is there are things that get let go in my life because you have to pay attention to work. And there are things that at work that have to wait because there's some crisis at home. So you could say it's balancing, but I think of it as more as prioritizing. And you're constantly shifting your priorities based on what the responsibility is that's before you. Obviously, if a family member, you know, got sick, that would shift to the top.
To the top priority.
If there's some deadline at work, then that shifts to the top.
Wow. So do you have any advice for young women that see someone like you and say, I want to be that woman?
I hope you're better than that woman. I mean, you know, there are no shortcuts. Somebody told me that a long time ago. I feel like I've worked really, really hard to get where I am today. And a lot of people spend time networking, getting to know important people, and those things are important. But you've got to do the hard work, because when the hard decisions have to be made and you're by yourself, you need to be grounded. You need to be mature. You need to have done some growing. You need to know who you are. You need to have courage. And a lot of that takes a lot of work, and you have to go through a lot in order to be able to lead an office this important with this many people and do it well. And so that takes a lot of internal work. I've done it through my faith. In God, I've you know, gone to I thank God for a lot of the things that He has put in my life, a lot of the challenges, because those challenges, when the so-called crisis comes in the DA's office, is nothing. Wait a minute, nobody lost a limb or a life, nobody's terminally ill, we're going to be okay, the sun will come up tomorrow. And you need that kind of maturity and groundedness to handle you know, positions like this. So that's what I was saying. No, there's no shortcuts.
Yes.
Just keep working, keep building, keep figuring out, does this help? Cut out things in your life that waste a lot of time, because you really don't have a lot of time. I feel like, you know, I'm 59 years old. I feel like I was at USC yesterday.
Yes.
And that's how fast life goes.
Wow. That's incredible. So we're going to be back right after this break.
Yeah.
Thank you for taking the time
Sure.
to even speak to us today. So those of you who are watching, please stay tuned in, text your family and friends, and say to tune in and watch. We have Jackie Lacey here, who is the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. We'll be back after this break. Good evening and welcome back to the Wednesday night episode of See You at USC. I'm here with Jackie Lacey, who's the District Attorney of Los Angeles County. How are you today?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
So we already, of course, asked her that. I don't even know why I went over that again. So, some things I'd like to know about are in regards to your accomplishments and initiatives that you're passionate about. And we talked earlier about some of the things that you've been involved with in terms of elder care and fraudulent activity that we should all be aware of, as well as human trafficking. Can we touch on that a bit?
Sure. I mean, my baby is actually, I have set a goal of warning seniors about fraudulent scams, and then we've made some changes in who we prosecute in human trafficking cases. But mental health is really my baby. That's something that I feel the criminal justice system really hasn't done right by people who have mental illness. 25% of the people in the criminal justice system have a diagnosed mental illness, and most of the time they receive their treatment in the confines of the county jail. And oftentimes, because they're ill, they end up spending more time in there. With the elder abuse, it's personal. My mother was a very strong woman growing up. Somewhere along the lines, when she got to be a senior, her personality changed just a little bit, and it was very imperceptible. But she became the victim of a scam, and I was just so surprised at how she was drawn in. But I realized that if my mom can be a victim, anybody's mom can be a victim, because I talk to her about my work all the time. But I think the most profound change that the DA's office has done while I've been DA is change the way we were locking up all these women and girls for prostitution, all these kids. And we've changed our thinking on that. Many of those kids, many of the women, are victims of human trafficking. And so we've turned our focus more on punishing the right people. And the right people are those who were profiting out of having these men and women, and sometimes boys, out on the street, providing sex acts to adults. And that change was profound, because what we did is we stopped prosecuting the kids. We diverted them. We gave them the help that they needed, education, medical care, whatever. And for some, they actually ended up helping us prosecute their traffickers.
Wow.
And now, we used to call them pimps. We changed our language, changed our focus. Pimps went to prison for maybe a few years, if at all. Now that you call them human traffickers, they can be in prison for life.
That's
incredible. And that was very profound.
Now, do you feel that, of course, many of the topics that you're prosecuting on and working with are very controversial. Have you had any individuals that have reached out to you and just said thank you for what you're doing? Because a lot of people haven't really understood my perception of this. Or
yeah, with mental health, everyone knows someone who has been diagnosed with some sort of mental illness. Everyone's affected by that. And people have privately came to me and said, hey, look, I've been terrified that my son or my daughter, especially with, when you think about it, for most people, mental illness comes on at college age. So a lot of the people maybe watching this program could be struggling with it. And you're terrified. You want to get that person help. They haven't yet come to grips with they have a mental illness. Or if they have, they don't know whether to get any help. There's such a stigma associated with it. People are afraid to even acknowledge or admit it. And in this country, there still isn't, in my opinion, parity of health care for people who have a mental illness.
Yes.
So this is something that I didn't realize it at the time we started this venture, which I put together a group of folks. And it was a small group of 6, and we started talking about it. It's now a group of about 100. We created the Office of Diversion and Reentry. We have a budget of $150 million. We have diverted, probably over 200 people out of the system, out of the jail and into treatment. We're training officers. We're doing so many things. So at the time I started it, I didn't realize we could go this far this fast. And it is amazing that's happening. So that's the one. The human trafficking, we're just starting, but I was at a summit recently where we met with our prosecutors from Asia, and we talked about the similarities in our fight against human trafficking, and surprisingly, there were a lot of similarities.
Wow. Now, seeing that these are your two most important, not necessarily most important, but two initiatives that have really, really been developed, do you foresee what your legacy is within this position?
Well, I think with mental health, we have a start, but we still have a long way to go. I always felt when we started this project, after doing some research about work in Miami, Florida, and also places like Memphis, Tennessee, that has the first law enforcement training, I always felt it would take a decade. And so I felt like I've gotten a good start, but there's still a lot of things that we need to see through. We need to create more housing for people who have a mental illness. So it's a start. There's no way you actually get everything accomplished when you're talking about changing the criminal justice system done in just a few years. It really does take anywhere from 6 to 10 years or more to sort of see that change through. But it's exciting to be at the forefront of it.
Yeah, without a doubt. And of course, you're managing a massive team. Is there something that you look for in everyone working under you?
I do now. So if you came to my office, you would probably find on my bookshelf no less than 50 leadership books. I read a lot of different books because I'm interested in the science of leading, and there is a science, and part of it is an art. But I look now, whereas maybe in the past, people might have said, I want stars on my team. Now, what I look for is ideal team players. There's a book by Patrick Lencioni that talks about having a team player and what an ideal team player. And an ideal team player is someone who is humble, who is hungry, and who is emotionally smart. And that's what I look for on my team. Because if you get that kind of personality on the team, there's no limit to what you can do. And that's really what I look for.
That's good advice for employers as well.
Yeah.
For those of you watching who own a business.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think it's a relatively new book, but it changed the questions that I started asking people who I was hiring.
Now, do you feel that your work bleeds into your home life and the way you parent your kids? Do you look for certain traits? Are you trying to develop within them traits that you see within yourself that you need to work on?
I think when I look at my children and I think about where I was in my 30s, I never imagined myself leading. And I wish I had, because I would have been preparing myself along. So I'm constantly giving them books, sharing stories of things that happen, engaging them in my work by conversations about, hey, what do you think about this? Yes. And I look back, my dad did the same thing to me. I just didn't know it. He would hand me books, and he'd say, I want you to read this book. Yeah, Dad, whatever. The title would be boring. And now I realize, he was trying to prepare me then for what he saw in me for the future. Yes. And so, I do involve them in my work. They're very interested. But I want them to have their own life. Neither one of them is interested in being a lawyer, unfortunately.
Yet, that we know of.
Yeah.
Give them a couple years.
Yeah. But what I want them to do is find something that they are passionate about. Because let's face it, if you have a Monday through Friday job, when you get up on Monday morning, it's never going to be pleasant. So it might as well be somewhere, you might as well work in a place where you enjoy what you do and you enjoy the people that you work with, and your boss is a good boss. So I try to give them that advice and encourage them and steer them and, use whatever advice or context that I have to help them out.
Yes. And now, since you've been the DA, is there anything that you have really taken away from this role that you will never forget?
Well, this is what I would take away. I thought I knew what it was like to be the District Attorney of LA County, because I was in management for 16 years and I was very close to my predecessor. And I watched him day in and day out. But I now realized I only saw a slice of his responsibility, and that slice was whatever part of the job I had, that's my interaction with him. I now have a huge appreciation for people who run large organizations, because contrary to what you might think, they have to know a lot about a lot of different topics. They got to know employment law, not just criminal justice. They got to know what the trends are. They have to understand politics. They have to know, some intricate details about consumer protection law.
Wow.
You would be surprised at, and there's no time. There's no time to do any research. You just have to learn it.
Yes.
On the fly and build from your experience. So I have a I have a newfound respect for the fellas, as I like to call them. You know, I'm number 42. I'm the 42nd district attorney.
Yes.
But I have a newfound respect for them, for what they, because I think when you take a job with this much pressure, you give up a little bit of your life.
Yes. Now, leading up to this, of course, you endured law school, which people talk about how terrible it is, and the late hours that they stay up studying and working. Where do you feel your biggest takeaway was? Was it in law school necessarily, or was it more so in your experience building up to the DA's office?
I think law school, especially here at USC, was very important. You had some brilliant, top-notch professors here that to this day I still remember some of the things they said and some of their classes. So I really feel like my education here really prepared me for the legal field. And I just, you know, I'm sure there are certainly other schools that are fantastic and great, but I'm really glad I chose this school because I think that it really did prepare me. And one of the things that I loved about my law school experiences, once I left, they still stayed in touch. Are you happy with your job? Did you get the position you like? Is there anything we can do? And even now, they've been, when I've needed some place to launch my mental health initiative,
they were the ones to
they
do
stepped up.
Now,
they said, sure.
Moving forward, what would you like people to remember you for?
You know what, it's funny, you're the first person to ask me that question. And when I have a group of women that we're very close. We call ourselves the divas, but we're the elected DAs in California. And when the new one comes in, I always say, start thinking about your legacy from day one. What do you want, because it's going to go by fast. What do you want people to remember you for?
Very quickly.
I want people to, when they think about me, to say, she was one of the best district attorneys that LA County had. While it's great to be known as the first woman and the first African American, I want them to say she was damn good, that she cared, that she improved the justice system, that she worked really hard, that I learned from her, that she inspired me, you know, to be better than I was, that you know, that she was a history maker.
Wow.
That would be what I'd want people to say.
And I think that without a doubt, people will say that. I have to thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of your work that you have done for the Los Angeles County. And if people want to get in touch with you, do you have any sort of Twitter or
Well,
social media?
I advise them, we have a website, the Los
Perfect.
Angeles County District Attorney's website. You email our webmaster, I
And
get
they'll
that
reach out.
information.
Great. Thank you all so much for watching the Wednesday night episode of See You at USC. We'll see you guys soon.
You're watching Trojan Vid.